Hola, Aníbal.
Good evening, good morning.
Good evening for Paraguay. So shall we start today's meeting?
We start? Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning in Seoul and good afternoon there in Paraguay. I'm Jiwon Kim, a researcher at the Hyundai Research Institute, and I'll be the host today of this whole meeting. Okay. So today we will be having the second working group meeting for the KSP project strengthening the automotive industrial policy in Paraguay. And thank you all for joining today. And during the first working group meeting, we had a chance to get to know each other and understand the needs of Paraguay better. And today we will be focusing on sharing some of the points that were raised during the advisory seminar with the Korean experts that we had 2 weeks ago, and also share some comments and feedback about how the research should proceed and how the field study has been going there in Paraguay as well. So before we dive into the actual seminar, I think it'd be great if we can introduce ourselves to each other because there are new members and also local consultants from Paraguay. So I will start first. I'm Jiwon Kim. I've recently joined the Hyundai Research Institute as a researcher at the International Cooperation team. And I'm really happy to be here today. And I'm really excited to continue working with all of you. Yeah, and I'll move on. So next we have Dr. Dang. He is the principal investigator. Could you please raise your hand or say some words to say hi? Dr. Jang? Yes. Okay. And next we have Ms. Jiwon Jang. She is a senior researcher here at Hyundai Research Institute.
Hello, everyone. Nice meeting you.
Okay. And lastly, we have So-hee Han. She is also known as Leticia, and she has been the contact point for reaching out to the local consultants.
Hola, I'm Leticia. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Leticia.
Okay, all right, that's it from our side. And could you please kindly introduce yourselves to our team members as well?
Good morning and good evening to all the colleagues from Korea. From the ministry side, I'm Aníbal Jiménez, Director General of Industrial Policy. And with me is Mr. Cesar Pastore and Mr. Luis Isul, who are local or national consultants in charge of the local survey. Probably will be joined by other colleagues later on, but we can start anyway. Thank you. Cesar and Luis, por favor.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this virtual meeting. My name is Cesar Pastore. I'm an economist and I work as a consulting on economic and financial issues. Nice to meet you, all of you.
Good morning to everyone in Seoul. This is Luis. I'm glad to be here working in the automobile sector. And I'm a colleague of Cesar also. I'm an economist and we are in the consulting sector working to make the diagnosis of the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's also Jorge and Gustavo from our side. If you please introduce yourself. Thank you.
I think we have a few new members joining in. Should we introduce ourselves again or should we just proceed right into the seminar?
We should proceed. Jorge, si me escuchas, si te puedes presentar, y Gustavo, por favor.
Good morning for you, good afternoon for us. My name is Gustavo Soberina.
Hello, my name is Jorge Sosa. I don't know if you can hear me. Well, a pleasure to share this meeting with everyone again. And as I don't know if Aníbal introduced me, but I'm from the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. A pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. We are very happy again to be here and to be able to work together with all of you for this project. I hope this meeting can be a time to casually share comments and ideas about the project so that we can produce a better research paper and also provide some practical and comprehensive insights into the automotive industry in Paraguay. So now we will move on to the brief summary of the advisory seminar that we had with Korean experts. We had 3 Korean experts invited to the advisory seminar 2 weeks ago and shared information about how the global automotive industry is moving forward and what kind of policy recommendations would be suitable for the current Paraguayan situation. So Leticia will kindly share the information.
I'll share the minutes of advisory seminar that I already shared to you guys. Can you see this file? Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Thank you. So I'll briefly summarize the advisory seminar that was held with Korean experts. And so the first presentation was about introducing specific automotive technologies for the transition into EV era. So the main point was that many countries are strengthening the environmental regulations for the vehicles. And this may be an important reason to accelerate developing electric motorization technology. Moreover, starting from US and EU, many OECD countries are raising fuel efficiency regulation. Since Paraguay's automotive industry can target to export the auto parts, we thought that it is necessary to pay attention to the automotive environmental regulation in neighboring exporting countries. However, there is a positive point that developing EV is much easier than developing ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine vehicle. So while it took 30 to 40 years to develop ICE vehicle, however, to develop EV, it takes only 5 to 10 years. Thus, developing EV was recommended in that presentation. And in the presentation, some auto parts related to EV was recommended, such as driving control parts, battery system, and charging system. And the second presentation was presented by Mr. Eunho Lee from CATEC. Maybe MIC will be familiar with him. He briefly introduced some ODA project that CATEC is operating and explained about establishing auto part task centers in Paraguay project. From the feasibility study of the project, the most important conclusion was that there is a high demand for technical education, and most of auto parts companies were not able to educate their engineers due to the high cost. Also, there was insufficient vocational institutions which can strengthen the manpower. Thus, we have derived that the biggest challenge of Paraguay is manpower training in the automobile industry. And the last presentation was about the legal system and institutional framework of the Paraguayan automotive industry. So we are analyzing the National Automotive Policy, PAN, lay number 4838, which is the main automotive industry promotion policy in Paraguay. And in the presentation, the professor also introduced about the EV related policy, Act 5183. If it is not true, then you can give us a feedback. And since the act is only in effect for years from only for 10 years from the 2014 when the law was enacted. So it is expected to expire at the end of December 2023. And we expected that the government needs to prepare the updated or upgraded version of promotion EV industry, which comprises promoting EV market, also promoting EV auto parts production. And we discussed about this presentation. And so to conclude, the main discussion point was switching from internal combustion engine to EV vehicle to upgrade the Paraguay automotive industry. And we were wondering how you think about this paradigm shift as a Paraguay's local view, because the most important thing is understanding your needs and reflecting them to the report. So this is the end of for me, and please give us any feedbacks from my explanation or from the minutes that I've already shared.
Leticia, may I
Yeah,
make
sure.
comments?
Sure.
Thank you, Leticia. We read the document. Just one clarification. The EV policy is a law, it's not an act. So just to make a correction also, it is scheduled to end in 2023, correct? So we are currently analyzing how to modify the national automotive promotion law, which you mentioned before, to give more space in the automobile EV electrical vehicles, some additional or more incentives, and to separate the traditional combustion manufacturing industry, so we can attract whether it's local or foreign investment. So we are just in the discussion on how we can take advantage of this space that in 2023, this law will, the incentives for the import of electrical vehicle will end, even though there's a possibility that there will be extension also in this period. But we wish also to encourage local manufacturing. So I think the idea that you summarize at the end, suggesting that Paraguay should look at the EV industry more than the traditional, we also share the same view, because many foreign consultants and foreign advisors also mentioned that the gap or the leap to EV vehicles is much shorter than the traditional. If Paraguay should take the traditional road for manufacturing traditional combustion engines or vehicles, it would take a lot more time, and we have two big producers, Argentina and Brazil. So mainly this is my first comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Leticia and Anibal, for your feedback and for the presentation as well. Now I'd like to open the floor to everyone to discuss how the research has been going and share some feedback about what needs to be done about it. If anyone would like to jump in, please do so.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Anibal. And I also agree that the EV policy should both comprises the promoting EV market, such as giving incentive of importing EVs, but also it needs to like promote the local manufacturers to start into EV production, such as EV auto parts that I already shared, battery or charging system. And is there any plans to like promote local manufacturers to produce EV auto parts?
Regarding auto parts, the main manufacturers which export are using the maquila, which has a very positive incentive, is oriented for the export market. We have to explore the possibility for domestic market, even though it's very reduced. But in EV auto parts for domestic market is very limited. We don't see a big opportunity. What we were discussing last week is that the motorcycle industry in Paraguay has over 10-15 years. It has reached probably its highest level of production. It is relying 100% on domestic market. It relies on incentives and also on protection from foreign competition from imports. Even though a few years ago the government took value-added tax as an incentive, they're still under other incentives, and they still have 30% tariff protection from imports. We don't see much change in private sector own initiatives. So I also share your presentation in the beginning when you mentioned the environmental issues. We need to align the requirements on environmental and safety issues with export markets, mainly Brazil. We have a gap there where we have no regulation for safety or environmental being applied for the motorcycle sector. So the idea is to prepare a new space for investment for EVs, motorcycles, where we will give them back the value-added tax as an incentive, but we will also require them to comply with international standards of safety and environmental issues to prepare them for, as soon as possible, export and not to rely on domestic market. So the idea is to not confront private sector, which are under these incentives, but open an opportunity just for them or for other domestic or foreign investors to start producing electrical motorcycles or bicycles. It is still under discussion. The last few weeks with the oil prices going up, we are having almost twice a month or 3 times a month prices adjustment of fuel. So there's a lot of positive discussion on electrical vehicles. So I think it is a good time that the ministry could start also preparing a proposal for a master plan looking into the EV sector, whether it's auto parts and electrical vehicles. When I mention electrical vehicles, I mean from bicycles, motorcycles, and vehicles. So I think we mostly share what the presentation has included. And I also wish to ask my other colleagues to participate. Just to finish, one more thought. Tomorrow we're having a meeting with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs also, because we are finishing our last bilateral automobile free trade agreement with Uruguay. So we need this third leg of the table to close up with the 3 countries which are member of Mercosur. So we will create a space for investment and for trade for the automobile and the EV vehicles trade. So our proposal will be a very positive and very including a low local content, as some of the suggestions from Hyundai mentioned, a lower content of local components to attract foreign investment and to promote trade among these Paraguay and Uruguay. Thank you.
I may comment some regarding the EV industry. So let me share my screen first. Here we go. Okay, so everyone can see my presentation slide, right? Okay, so my question started with which focus area Paraguay wants between developing internal combustion engines versus EV-based vehicles. So to solve my curiosity, the first step was to see the growth path, development path of the automotive industry. So considering the industrial growth stage and value chain, the automotive industrial development stages starts from the import of the completed products, skills adaptation, and the technology introduction, then technology internalization, then the innovations in technology. The listed with blue and green words here are the examples of project in stages of industrial development, which Korea also have experienced throughout the automotive development history. So about Paraguay, KSP team made some predictions on what development path the Paraguayan automotive industry is on. So through today's discussion, excuse me, I'd like to talk with MIC and our local consultants if my provision of the current status here, Paraguay, is correct. Of course, to make it clear, in, I guess, April or May, KSPT will conduct a technology demand survey targeting the automotive industry relevant stakeholders such as public and private institutions, including automobile related companies, automobile parts associations, automotive industry research institutes, and also maybe universities as well. Then we might see more clear visions of the field. So according to the fast changes of global automotive industry, Paraguay also have to prepare for the development of EV-based vehicles. But can they and are they ready to adopt the new technologies? Well, my provisional answer is yes. And yes, Paraguay is getting ready because industries in all fields in general make gradual industry change. And I believe Paraguay is developing and also they're advancing their own automotive skills, which means Paraguay is heading to adopt the new technologies. I guess it is the matter of time and Paraguayan government's will for industrial advancement. So in my understanding, automotive industry of Paraguay is in the middle stages between skills adaptation and the technology internalization. This is why I was trapped in the question between internal combustion engines versus EVs. What area should KSP project should more focus on? And I'd like to discuss today on my questions. So my presentation ends here, and please feel free to give opinions if I am heading a wrong direction or the right directions. Thank you.
May I have some comments about the presentation?
Yes, please.
Looking at your, I will begin. I apologize for my Spanglish, maybe not English. When I saw your presentation, it's very clear that we are like in the middle of this point. Maybe the industry in Paraguay only rely until now in CKD imports, complete now down. we are relying heavily in the imports of CKD. And we still lack of the research and development production technology. We need to focalize on this point. And we also need to focalize on the incentives that the regime can do for the sector. For example, as Mr. Anibal mentioned, we have some incentives to import some kind of vehicles. For example, vehicles who use the mixed fuel, let's say from Korean industry, for example, Kia or Hyundai. There are vehicles that are using fuel and also alcohol, you know. This was a kind of incentive to promote the local production of this kind of fuel. And this is a law that has more than 20 years until now. They didn't get a big industrialization in this kind of agro-industrial sector. And maybe the local assemblies industry complain about that kind of situation, because if you are promoting the import of a vehicle for outside Mercosur without paying tariff, you will not improving or encouraging the local industry or local producers. That's such kind of we need to focalize our investment regime in some kind of potential, like you are mentioned, the electric vehicles in some steps. And also, maybe we need to think that all kind of industry in Paraguay that must be successful need to be oriented to the market, to the export market, because our local market is very small and with not a high level of income. And what's happened with our law that promote the assembly of motorcycles, they grow especially oriented to the local market, and they are now reaching their ceilings. They cannot grow anymore because they don't use the research and development of production technology. They don't comply with the technical or standards, and that's why maybe the kind of incentives should be focalized only in small areas where we can find some comparative advantage. Thank you very much.
I would like to invite Jorge, Gustavo, and Luis to feel free, please, to add comments in Spanish. Even we can help with the translation, but I would like them to also add some opinion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Aniol. Can I talk? Well, this slide is wonderful, really. As Cesar said, maybe you are in the middle or around the middle. I think having this target in mind, as the other presentation, I think it was Leticia or G1 who made the written one. One of the targets should be to start also in qualified labor. Maybe we should start in the technical school and go through the university too, because maybe as we go improving in the process of producing car and bikes, more technical things, the demand of the more qualified labor will increase. I think that is a point to have in mind also. And I think it's a comprehensive approach we have to have in this automotive sector. Thank you very much.
So in my understandings from the Paraguayan side's opinions, so Paraguay may not do the quantum jump, so directly into developing the EV industry, and they might take two-track strategies, and but also Paraguay has to get ready for adapting to global.
Sorry, just one. Maybe can you put a full presentation in your screen? Sometimes the letter it out. That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, is it okay? Okay. So I guess Paraguay has to take two tracks. So both developing the internal combustion engines and also developing EV-based vehicles, because they cannot abandon directly developing the internal combustion engines right now. So this is because Paraguay also has to get ready for adapting to global fast changing of global automotive industry as well. So yeah, thank you for your opinions. And I'll share this slide to all of you if you want. Yeah.
Can I make more comments?
Sure.
One of the barrier of the EVs locally is, as no surprise, the cost of purchasing an EV vehicles, which is around 30,000, 28,000, 35,000 US dollars. These vehicles are Chinese, BYD. I forgot the other brand. We are now increasing the imports from other brands, Korean, Kia, Hyundai, Toyota, as well as Europeans from Mercedes, BMWs. But it is seen as a, even though it's an interesting product, it is seen as a not accessible product in the short term, even if we can provide some soft finance for these vehicles. As you mentioned in the past, MIC has made an alliance with the National Bank to promote new vehicles purchasing for the family, which is very successful, and it's still going on. We are thinking of implementing this in the electrical vehicles, but prices are just way too high. And I think we could explore the strategy China is using to introduce in large scale the electrical vehicles, producing local brands for under 4,000, 5,000 US dollars. China is very big, of course, and they have domestic market large enough to make this type of businesses sustainable. But I think Paraguay could look at a similar strategy, thinking within first stage domestic market, but in the midterm export market, where we can establish a low cost or small EV vehicles as a way to introduce the technology to invite users to use this type of products, and to have companies also, whether they're local or joint ventures, invest in this sector and at a very low cost. I think this is maybe some stage where we could think Paraguay could participate, mainly because in the neighboring countries, the big brands are already established, and it's difficult to think that one of these big brands will relocate to Paraguay to produce even traditional combustion vehicles. Is probably one thing that I would leave Hyundai Research Institute to think more, and maybe in the future give us some feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As you mentioned, the barrier, the cost issue is the most important problem to solve. So during this project, KSP team will try to make implications reflecting how Korea solved that issues, since Korea also started from the baby steps to developing the EV industry. So yeah, please let us research on that issue as well. Thank you.
And also, as you mentioned, we were also reviewing the China's cases, because before 5 or 10 years, there was no Chinese EV companies such as BYD or other small Chinese EV companies. But after a few years, they developed their technologies by their own, and the point was that the Chinese government did not put any regulation on developing those technologies. So we will review the Chinese cases also, as well. And if there is anything to comment or to discuss.
And I like to make an additional comment. We are currently also, as MIC, is in charge of regulation of the charging stations.
Oh yeah.
So we have adopted as mandatory the type 2 type of connector, like a European, I believe, type 2. So the charging points over 50 kilowatts, which is considered fast chargers, it is mandatory that you can have any type of chargers, but mandatory you have at least one type 2 in each charging station. This is a regulation that will be out probably in the next month. We have also adopted some regulation for safety for the construction of these chargers. We are also in contact with private sector, because the imported brands are interested in promoting their own electrical vehicles, so they might start building their own charging station in the city or around the main highways. We are also working with Itaipu and Yacyretá, which are the 2 hydroelectrical dams, to establish a triangle of highway connecting Asunción, Ciudad del Este, Encarnación, Asunción, which is over 800 kilometers. where they will have all these charging stations to assure any owner of EV that they will have a charging station in the road. So in the next year, we expect 12 months, 18 months to have a high discussion on electrical vehicles, charging stations from whether it's government promotion or private sector. We are also encouraging the National Electricity Company to revise or analyze the tariff for these charging stations. So this is another action that will contribute in promoting EVs. Thank you.
May I have one point about this? I think it's a big challenge for the government to think about the right incentive systems, because now we are a country with a high production of electricity, and we want to promote the use of this electricity. But we can promote the use of electricity relying on imported cars also. But sometimes we need to, maybe we want to rely more on assembling our own cars. But I think the main objective is not to be to use our electricity. Our main objective should be producing for an external market, not only focusing on our internal market, because we had a lot of electricity and we want to use this electricity. And maybe we think first about promoting the import of imported electric cars, but now we should shift to incentivize the local industry for EV cars, or at least for EV auto parts in the country. And this is why maybe Aníbal and his team, they are developing some new strategy about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your feedback and opinion about this. And if you don't have any further comments, we would now like to hear from local consultants about the field study as well. If you could please kindly share the information, we'd appreciate to hear them.
Mr. Cesar or Mr. Luis, could you please share the progress of field study?
Yes,
Yes,
I
yes,
think
of course.
Cesar is going to explain.
Yes, I will provide some inputs about that.
Thank you.
As you know, our work started last week with a meeting. We start with a meeting with the Director of Industrial Policy, Mr. Aníbal Jiménez, and his entire team that deals with the automotive policy, and the investment incentive system also. Mr. Aníbal designate a contact person to allow us to request information, and by this way, we had contacted and requested information related to automotive sector regulatory framework, the current situation of the sector, number of companies, volume of productions, regarding also the final production of assembly cars, motorcycles, but also for the auto parts in the country. There are two different kind of industry, as you know. The assembly vehicles and motorcycles are oriented until now only to internal markets. It's difficult for the government maybe shift the incentives to produce only oriented to local market, to shift to produce for external markets and complying with the technical quality standards and other points. And But in the case of the auto parts, the enterprise are created oriented exclusively to the external markets because they are joined with the let's say the networks of very large markets, and they are part of the are linked to the important brands, industrial brands, and they rely on trade agreements with a special regime like maquila or something like that. And also we are searching about technology and training of employees systems. We are searching about development potential and main restrictions, potential export markets, and actual trade agreements that benefit the sector, especially related to Mercosur. There are two main agreements with Argentina and Brazil. And as Aníbal mentioned, they are currently negotiating a new agreement with Uruguay. And that kind of agreement will be helpful for sectors like maquila. Our counterparts have also facilitated contacts with other agencies such as the maquila, the Export and Investment Network, REDIEX, we call REDIEX, as well as representative of companies that operate under the maquila regimes. We are making interviews about what they need from the system, what can improve, what we can improve in the scheme of incentives. And Mr. Aníbal also is arranging a meeting with the representative of motorcycle and vehicle assembling companies. They are, until now, as I mentioned before, they are oriented to the local market, and sometimes they don't want to lose their incentives because if they want to export, they can be under pressure for incorporating new technologies. They need to train the employees, and they need to comply with the technical standards that apply for other markets. And we are advancing in getting all the information about those items, and we want to prepare the first draft for the next week. I hope this first draft will be completely, but maybe we cannot cover all the issues that we want to cover in this short time. But with your comments about the first draft, we can incorporate and make some big improvements for the next draft. Thank you very much. I know, Luis, if you want to add some more questions or comments.
So no, just that I was looking at the cracking the numbers today. The Ministry of Industry sent to us, and I saw export in all export regimes of auto parts since it started more than 10 years ago. It grew like 150,000%. The export of auto parts. I think it's a very interesting market. That is it. That's it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Cesar. And we look forward to the first draft. And thank you for Aníbal to arrange those meetings. And we want to share our further plans as the last step for this working group meeting. And the one of the tasks in the KSP project is interim seminar and inviting Paraguay's key stakeholders. However, this in the COVID-19 season, we were wondering your internal business trip regulation to abroad. Is there any regulation or like prohibiting your business trip to Korea?
Leticia,
Yes.
as far as I know, whether you wish to come and visit Paraguay, I believe there is very limited restriction. I think it's only vaccine certificate and PCR 48 hours before you take your flight, but there's no quarantine in Paraguay. We are having both meetings person to person and also virtual or online meetings. So we still have a mandatory face mask, but we have no restriction to meet or to stay or to have restaurants, those type of restriction that was very limited during the pandemic. Even we have lifted all restriction on limited hours or when you could do and do not do things. So I think in the case of Paraguay, it is almost quite controlled. Regarding our possibility to visit Korea, we also have no limitation to go abroad. We have been in Korea last year, some of us. The current vice minister is going next week to Qatar, and then he's going to Taiwan. So from our side, there's no limitation. Thank you.
Thank you. I will share this information to the KOTRA and Ministry of Economy. And thank you for this meeting. Is there any comments or discussion or?
I'm sorry that I couldn't say hello due to the poor communication at the beginning of this seminar. I think it is important to gradually move from general part to core part. And many people say that electric EV is more like electronics than cars. So that's why the major car makers are trying to get the technology of secondary battery manufacturing technology. So if we want to approach the core technology of EVs, I think we need to pay attention to the secondary battery industry too. So in the middle of study, we will take some study on the secondary battery, I think. That's my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Yang.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comments. First time I heard the terminology secondary battery was in Korea last year.
Rechargeable battery.
No, secondary. You mentioned secondary battery.
Yes.
Can you explain more to us? What does it mean?
Secondary battery means the term means the rechargeable battery. In Korea, we call that not one-time use battery. You can use rechargeable. I don't know, the word is not worldwide. Do you call that rechargeable battery only?
So it's the same thing as rechargeable.
Yeah.
Secondary. Okay. Thank you.
That's right. Yes.
Thank you. And I also read that I think 70% of all electrical batteries for EVs are factories are in China, Korea, and Japan. Is that correct?
75%.
70% of all batteries manufactured for EVs.
Yes, that's right. I think Korea is the largest supplier in the rechargeable battery. Before that, Japan was the first supplier, and then now it is changing to China is the first supplier of the worldwide battery in EVs. Maybe I cannot remember the exact number, but it is above, around that 70%. That's right, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Leticia, I don't know if anything's more from your side.
Can I make one question to Mr. Yang?
Yes, sir.
Because
Yeah.
I want to learn from his experience in this field. I heard that BYD is the biggest manufacturer of batteries for EV cars. It's true? That's it true? In China?
I heard BY is trying to get the technology to manufacture the battery. So the major automakers nowadays buy some battery makers. They by M&A or strategic alliance. They are trying to battery technology inside of the automakers.
Okay. Because they are here in Paraguay, one imported of this brand, and they are promoting that they has the best battery, and they also sell the battery to Tesla, for example. I'm not sure if this is true or not. But they say they have the best battery for long trips and easy chargeable. And maybe the biggest manufacturer of batteries in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yang.
Mr. Yang, and the rest of the team, I would also wish for HRI to consider what would it take to, I heard that it's very important to have a battery manufacturing company in the region to promote EVs.
Yeah.
Because this is the life of the vehicle. If you don't have, you cannot rely on batteries on the other side of the world, like China. You cannot establish an EV factory and have your batteries on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
So one thing we are discussing whether we should aim at attracting a secondary battery manufacturing company in the region as a seed to promote in the region EVs. Whether Paraguay will assemble one in the future or not, but if Paraguay should think about looking for a electrical for a secondary battery, considering that the raw material in Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile is around Paraguay.
Yeah.
So please also think on that and give us some advice. Thank
yes. The raw materials such as lithium or cobalt is very important to make a secondary battery, and the battery prices account for a high portion of the EV prices. So it's a very important starting point, I think. Thank you.
Regarding the question from Mr. Cesar, BYD is the fourth largest electric vehicle manufacturer in the world. So it is with 185,000 units so far this year, with a market share of nearly 6.5%. So following by the biggest electric vehicle manufacturer is Tesla, and second is SAIC Motor in China. SAIC Motor. The third place is Volkswagen Group. The fourth is BYD, and the fifth is Hyundai. of Korea. And BYD itself is the second biggest Chinese electric car brand.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the information, Ms. Jiwon. And now I think we're coming to close this meeting. It was wonderful to hear from everyone about this project and about your feedback as well. I hope this meeting can bring some fruitful and meaningful results as to the project. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Jinwoo, what would be the next steps? You expect now to receive on the 21st, the first draft from Cesar, and then after that, what we should expect?
We're currently planning to hold another meeting in April, another seminar in April. So before then, we're planning to produce an interim report. Yeah, I don't know if it'll be shared with everyone. Is it shared with everyone?
From Cotra's office here in Asunción, they asked about this presentation of midterm report around April or May. They were asking about the possibility to have the participation of the Vice Minister. So we are looking into probably April or May. I also asked Cotra to request HRI for this seminar on May for the automobile sector under Mercosur's meeting.
Yeah.
But we will talk more about that once we agree on the dates. Well, the date is on the 17th, but we will talk more in another meeting. Thank you. I thank HRI for your positive response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
I
also.
hope to see you soon.
감사합니다.
Thank you and
Thank you.
buenas noches.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias. Chao,
Thank you.
gracias.
Thank you.
Buenas noches.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
갑자기
수고하셨습니다.
딴짓하고 있다가 진짜 지나가 버렸네.
실장님 전화 영어를 하셔서 그런지 영어가 장난 아니신데요.
괜히 말했어. 자꾸 질문해가지고 말 안 해요.
진짜 배터리 박사님 약간 이런 느낌이었습니다.
그래, 수고 많이 했습니다.
네, 수고하셨습니다.
수고하셨습니다.
실장님,
응.
저희